The education station floated in the darkness of space like a silver wheel. It orbited a small moon far from any sun, a neutral place where young aliens from across the galaxy came to learn. Inside its bright corridors, 200 juveniles from 47 different species attended classes together. Some had fur, some had scales, and some had bodies that looked like nothing found on Earth. They learned mathematics, history, and science. They learned about the great galactic council that kept peace among the stars. For 300 years, the station had operated without incident. Teachers guided students through careful lessons. Everything was safe, controlled, and predictable. Then the humans applied to join the program. Ambassador Chen stood in the arrival bay watching the doors slide open. He was a tall man with dark hair starting to show gray at the temples. His face had lines from smiling and his hands looked strong from years of work. He wore simple clothes, a dark blue uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. Professor Tillith waited to greet him. She was Vexari, with soft purple fur and large golden eyes that blinked sideways. Her forearms moved nervously as she approached. Like all the teachers at the station, she had studied humans before this meeting. What she learned had not made her comfortable. Ambassador Chen, she said, her translator device turning her chirping sounds into standard galactic speech. Welcome to Learning Station 17. I hope your journey was not too difficult. Chen smiled and extended one hand. Tillith hesitated before touching it with one of her own hands. The human's grip was firm but not crushing. The trip was fine, Chen said, though I'm glad to be somewhere with gravity again. Weightlessness makes my stomach unhappy. Tillith's ears twitched in confusion. Your transport ship had no gravity compensation? Oh, it did. I just don't like artificial gravity much. Feels wrong somehow. Chen picked up his bag easily, though the weight made Tillith's eyes widen. That bag would require an assistance drone for most species. As they walked through the station, other teachers and students stopped to stare. A human, a real human from Earth, the Death World. Everyone had heard stories about Earth. It had weather that could kill. Animals that hunted anything that moved. Diseases that could wipe out entire populations. The gravity alone would crush a Perlian or snap a Threxian's bones, yet humans had not just survived there. They had thrived. They had gone from caves to starships in less time than most species went from fire to the wheel. And now one of them was here, about to teach their children. We have prepared quarters for you, Tillith said as they walked. Climate controlled to match Earth standard. 21 degrees Celsius, humidity at 60%. Oxygen-nitrogen mix at... Actually, Chen interrupted gently. Could we skip the climate control? I'd prefer whatever the station uses normally. Tillith stopped walking. But Ambassador, our standard atmosphere has less oxygen. The temperature is cooler. You would be uncomfortable. I'll adapt, Chen said with a shrug. Honestly, controlled environments make me feel trapped. I like real air, as if the carefully balanced atmosphere wasn't real enough. Tillith made a note on her datapad. The human wanted less oxygen and lower temperatures. Already he was proving the reports correct. Humans preferred challenge to comfort. They passed a classroom where young aliens sat at desks designed for their various body types. Through the window, Chen could see a teacher pointing at a star map. The students looked bored. When they noticed Chen walking by, every head turned. Their eyes went wide. A small Rillian cub pressed his face against the window. His teacher tried to pull him back to his seat, but the cub was too excited. Chen waved at him. The cub waved back with both arms. They are very curious about you, Tillith admitted. We told them a human would be joining the teaching staff. Many of them have never seen a Death Worlder before. Death Worlder, Chen repeated. That's what you call us? It is the scientific classification. Earth scores 7.3 on the hazard scale. Anything above 5 is considered a death world. Only 13 species in the council come from planets that harsh. Humans are... She paused, searching for words. You are the most recent to reach space travel. The others had millions of years to evolve their technology. You did it in less than 200,000 years. We were motivated, Chen said simply. They reached his quarters. A simple room with a bed, desk, and viewing window that showed the stars. Chen set down his bag and looked around, nodding approval. When do I meet the cubs? He asked. Tomorrow, Tillith said. We have a full schedule prepared. You will teach them about Earth culture, human history, perhaps some basic language lessons. I was thinking something more practical, Chen said. Primitive skills, Survival techniques, things human children learn growing up. Tillith's fur rippled, a sign of anxiety. What kind of survival techniques? Basic stuff. How to find water. Identify edible plants. Build shelter. Make tools from natural materials. Chen smiled. Make fire. The professor's translator made a sound like she was choking. Fire? You mean uncontrolled combustion? Well, controlled combustion, technically. Fire is only dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Tillith's 4 hands gripped her datapad tightly. Fire. The human wanted to teach fire. To children. She thought about the safety protocols, the emergency procedures, the liability forms. Fire was a Class 4 environmental hazard. It required special handling teams and suppression equipment. And this human spoke about it like it was nothing. I will need to discuss this with the faculty council, she said carefully. Of course, Chen agreed. I understand it might seem unusual. But on Earth, every child learns these skills. My daughter made her first fire when she was 6 years old. 6. Tillith's mind reeled. Human children, barely old enough to attend basic education, playing with fire. She wondered again if allowing humans into the program was wise. That evening, the faculty council gathered in the conference room. 47 teachers from 47 worlds discussed the humans' proposal. Some were frightened. Some were fascinated. Some simply could not believe what they were hearing. It is too dangerous, said Kravesh, a Quellan who taught physics. His tentacles curled with agitation. Fire spreads. Fire kills. We cannot allow it near the students. But consider the learning opportunity, argued Voris, a Threxian history teacher. Humans mastered fire hundreds of thousands of years before space travel. It was their first technology. Understanding how they think about danger could be valuable. Or it could be catastrophic, Kravesh countered. Tillith listened to both sides. She looked at the data on her screen, reading about Earth and its history. Humans lived with danger every day. They breathed air that could rust metal. They drank water that contained deadly bacteria, though their bodies had learned to handle it. They ate plants that were poisonous to almost every other species. And they had taken fire, one of the most destructive forces in nature, and made it their servant. We will allow a demonstration, she announced finally, in the wilderness zone with full safety protocols. All students who participate must have parental permission. Emergency teams will be on standby, and if anything goes wrong, we stop immediately. The council voted. The decision was close, but it passed. The next morning, Chen met his first class of 30 young aliens. They came from 12 different species, all between 8 and 14 years old by their own world standards. They sat in chairs designed for their bodies and stared at the human with wide eyes. Hello, Chen said, his voice warm and friendly. My name is Chen. I'm from Earth. Who wants to learn how humans survive? Every hand, paw, tentacle, and appendage in the room went up. Chen smiled. Good. Then let's talk about fire. The wilderness zone was not truly wild. The station's designers had created it carefully, filling a large dome with plants, rocks, and a small stream. The temperature stayed comfortable. The plants were all non-toxic. The largest creature living there was the size of a small cat. It was the safest version of nature that anyone could imagine. To the 30 young aliens walking into it with Chen, it felt like an adventure. They wore safety equipment, each student fitted with a tracking device and emergency beacon. Medical teams waited just outside the dome. Security drones floated above, watching everything. Professor Tillith stood in the observation room with 5 other teachers, her eyes fixed on the monitors that showed every angle of the dome. Chen walked ahead of the group, his footsteps quiet on the grass. He looked around like a hunter studying territory. The cubs followed in a cluster, some brave, some nervous, all excited. This is nice, Chen said, kneeling to touch the soil. Good drainage. See how the dirt is slightly damp but not wet? That means plants grow well here. A small Perlian cub named Zix raised one delicate arm. Teacher Chen, what are we learning today? How to make fire, Chen said simply. The group went silent. They had talked about fire in the classroom, seen videos of it, learned the chemistry, but actually making it? That was different. Fire was dangerous. Fire was what destroyed forests and melted metal. Fire was not something you made on purpose. Is that safe? Asked Mora, a young Threxian with blue scales. If you do it right, Chen said, and I'm going to show you how to do it right. First rule of fire, respect it. Fire is powerful. Fire can hurt you if you're careless, but fire can also warm you, cook your food, and keep you safe. Understanding it is better than fearing it. In the observation room, Teelith watched her monitor with growing dread. She had authorized this demonstration, but now she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. Her fingers hovered over the emergency stop button. Chen began gathering materials. He walked through the wilderness zone, pointing out different plants and materials. "This is dry grass," he said, holding up a handful. "Good for starting fires. See how it's brown and crispy? When it's like this, it catches flame easily." He gathered more, making a small pile. Next, he found some bark from a dead tree. "This is excellent tinder. Tinder is the stuff that catches the first spark." He shredded the bark with his fingers until it looked like soft fiber. The cubs watched, fascinated. They had learned about combustible materials in chemistry class, but they had never seen someone prepare them by hand. Most species never touched raw materials at all. They used tools and machines for everything. "Now we need harder wood," Chen continued. He searched until he found a fallen branch. He broke it across his knee with a sharp crack that made several cubs jump. "We'll use this to make the fire itself." "But Teacher Chen," said Kix, a Rillian cub with gray fur, "where are your tools? Don't you need a flame starter? Or a chemical igniter?" Chen smiled. "I'm going to show you how humans made fire before we had any of those things, using just our hands and what nature provides." He sat down on the ground and began to work. From his pocket, he pulled out a knife. The security systems immediately alerted, and Teelith saw warnings flash on her screen. A blade. The human had brought a blade among the children. "It's okay," Chen called out, apparently noticing the change in the drone's hovering pattern. "Just a tool. I'm going to use it to make our fire-starting equipment." He cut a flat piece of wood and used the knife to carve a small notch in it. Then he cut a straight stick and sharpened one end. The cubs gathered closer, watching his hands work. Some had never seen manufacturing done by hand before. Everything they owned came from fabricators and assembly systems. "This is a bow drill," Chen explained. "One of the oldest tools humans ever made." He found a curved stick and some plant fiber, quickly making something that looked like a simple bow. The string was made from twisted grass stems. "Teacher Chen is building a machine," Voras whispered in the observation room, his voice full of wonder. "A primitive machine, but functional. Look at the mechanical advantage of the bow design." Chen wrapped the bowstring around his straight stick and placed the stick's sharp end into the notch on the flat wood. He placed the tinder bundle nearby. "Now watch," he said. "I'm going to create friction. Friction makes heat. Heat makes fire." He began moving the bow back and forth. The stick spun rapidly in the notch. The cubs leaned in, their various eyes wide with curiosity. At first, nothing happened. Chen kept moving the bow steadily, his breathing calm and regular. Smoke began to rise from the wood. "Smoke!" Zix squeaked. "It's smoking. That's the wood getting hot," Chen explained, still working the bow. "The friction is creating temperatures of about 200 degrees Celsius right at this point." In the observation room, alarms began to sound. The safety systems detected smoke and rising temperatures. Teelith's hand moved toward the emergency button, but she stopped herself. The human seemed calm. The cubs were safe, standing a reasonable distance away. She watched, her heart's pounding. More smoke poured from the notch. Chen's movement stayed steady, mechanical, practiced. Finally, he stopped. A tiny glowing ember sat in the notch, red and angry. "There," Chen said softly. "Fire's beginning." He carefully transferred the ember into his prepared tinder bundle. The cubs gasped as he lifted the smoking bundle in his bare hands. He held it at arm's length and began to blow on it gently. The smoke increased. The ember glowed brighter. Then with a soft whoosh, flames appeared. 10 cubs screamed. 5 ran backward. 3 stood frozen in shock. The rest made various sounds of alarm in their native languages. The human held actual fire in his hands, and he was smiling. "It's okay," Chen said calmly. He placed the burning tinder bundle on the ground in a clear area away from grass. "Fire isn't magic. It's just a chemical reaction. Oxygen plus fuel plus heat equals fire." He added small sticks to the growing flame. They caught quickly, and soon a proper fire burned on the ground. The cubs slowly moved closer again, drawn by curiosity despite their fear. "Come on," Chen encouraged. "You can get closer. Just don't touch it and don't lean over it." Mora, the brave Threxian, took 3 steps forward. The fire's light reflected off her blue scales. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "and useful," Chen added. He produced a small metal container from his pack and filled it with water from the stream. He placed it near the fire, balanced on stones. We can boil water with fire. Make it safe to drink. We can cook food, making it easier to digest and killing harmful bacteria. As the water began to heat, more cubs approached. They sat in a circle around the fire, careful to maintain a safe distance. The flames danced and crackled. The warmth reached their faces. Something ancient and primal stirred in their young minds. On Earth, Chen said quietly, humans gathered around fires for hundreds of thousands of years. Fire gave us warm places to sleep. Fire scared away predators. Fire let us cook meat, which gave us more energy to grow bigger brains. Fire let us work metal, which led to better tools. Everything we are as a species started here with this. Kix reached out one paw toward the warmth, then pulled it back. Aren't you afraid of it? I respect it, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Fear makes you run away. Respect makes you careful. Fire will burn you if you're stupid about it, but if you understand it, fire becomes your friend. In the observation room, Tealith watched 30 young aliens sit mesmerized by flames. She saw their faces in the firelight. They looked different somehow. More alert, more alive, more curious. This is extraordinary, Vores said beside her. Look at their engagement levels. They're completely focused. They're learning about danger, Krivesh said nervously. This could have terrible consequences. But Tealith wasn't listening to either of them. She was watching Chen carefully add another stick to the fire, and she was watching the cubs lean in to see how he did it. They were learning. Really learning. Not just absorbing information for tests, but understanding something fundamental about the universe. Chen reached into his pack and pulled out several sets of safety gloves. All right, he said. Who wants to learn how to add wood to a fire? Every single cub raised their hand, paw, or tentacle. Good, Chen said with a warm smile. Let's start with safety rules. Rule 1, never touch fire with bare skin. Rule 2, always check the wind direction before adding fuel. Rule 3, keep water nearby for emergencies. Rule 4, never turn your back on a fire. Can everyone repeat those? The cubs recited the rules in their various voices, a chorus of different sounds all saying the same thing. Chen handed out the gloves and began teaching them one by one how to safely add small sticks to the flames. Tealith watched a young Quellan cub named Plix carefully place a stick on the fire. The stick caught, flames licking along its length, and Plix's tentacles curled with joy. The cub had just mastered fire. A Class 4 environmental hazard. And Plix looked proud. What have we allowed? Tealith whispered to herself, but deep down she knew the answer. They had allowed their children to learn something no one had taught them before. They had allowed them to be brave. The fire burned steadily while Chen taught the cubs how to maintain it. He showed them how to arrange wood so air could flow through. He demonstrated how to add fuel gradually, not all at once. He explained about different types of smoke and what they meant. White smoke means good combustion, he said, pointing at the flames. Black smoke means something's wrong, not enough oxygen or bad fuel. You read fire like a language. Mora carefully placed another stick on the fire exactly as Chen had shown her. The flames accepted it, growing slightly. She felt a surge of pride that made her scales shimmer. Teacher Chen, Zix asked, his small voice curious. On Earth, do all humans know how to make fire? Most do, Chen replied. It's taught in schools and by parents. My daughter learned when she was 6. The cubs looked at each other, 6 years old. Most of them were older than that now, and they had never even touched something as dangerous as fire. We also learned what to do if fire gets out of control, Chen continued. He showed them the water container he had prepared. Fire needs 3 things to burn: fuel, oxygen, and heat. Remove any one of those things and fire stops. Water removes heat and blocks oxygen. Dirt does the same. That's why we clear an area before starting a fire. He pointed to the circle of bare dirt around their fire. The cubs noticed for the first time that Chen had carefully removed all grass and leaves from a wide area. Always prepare before you light fire, Chen said. Plan for what you'll do if something goes wrong. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. A small Threxian named Jorn reached toward the fire without thinking, curious about the flames. His hand got too close and he pulled it back with a sharp cry. One of his scales had gotten hot and it hurt. Chen was beside him immediately. He pulled out a small medical kit and examined Jorn's hand. Not burned, just heated, he said calmly. It hurts, doesn't it? Jorn nodded, tears in his eyes. Good, Chen said gently. Pain is your body's teacher. It tells you what to avoid. You won't make that mistake again, will you? No, Teacher Chen, Jorn said quietly. That's learning, Chen said, treating the minor injury with cool gel. Real learning comes from experience, not just books. Fire teaches you to be careful. That's a valuable lesson. In the observation room, Professor Tillith watched this exchange with complex feelings. The human had let a student get hurt. On purpose? No, but he hadn't prevented it either. And now Chen was acting like the pain was a good thing, like suffering had value. This teaching method is barbaric, Kravesh muttered. Allowing pain to instruct? We would never. But look, Vares interrupted. Watch the other cubs. Every young alien near the fire had pulled back slightly, maintaining a more careful distance. They had all learned from Yorn's mistake without experiencing it themselves. Fear of fire had been replaced by respect for fire. Chen gathered the cubs in a circle around the flames. Fire isn't just for warmth, he said. Humans used fire for many things. We cooked food with it, making nutrients easier to absorb. We used it to harden wood for tools. We learned to heat rocks until they melted, creating metal. Metal comes from rocks? Kix asked, surprised. All metal starts as ore in the ground, Chen explained. Heat it hot enough and pure metal separates out. That's called smelting. Humans were doing it 10,000 years ago. Fire let us make bronze, then iron, then steel. Better metals meant better tools. Better tools meant better lives. He pulled a small knife from his belt, the same one he had used earlier. This blade is steel. Mostly iron with a bit of carbon mixed in. Someone heated iron ore to over 1,500 degrees Celsius to make the metal for this knife. Fire made that possible. The cubs stared at the knife with new understanding. Every tool they used, every piece of their station had started as raw materials. But most of them had never thought about how materials were processed. Fabricators just made things, magic boxes that produced whatever you needed. Humans couldn't just push a button and get tools, Chen continued. We had to make everything ourselves. We had to understand how materials worked. Fire was the first step in that understanding. He placed a rock near the flames. Watch this rock. As it heats up, it will change color. That tells you its temperature. Red means about 500 degrees. Orange means 700. Yellow means over 1,000. Humans learned to judge temperature by color because we worked with fire so much. The cubs watched the rock slowly change from gray to dark red. They were learning to see what the humans saw, to read information from something that had seemed like simple destruction before. Teacher Chen, Mora said slowly, did humans use fire as a weapon? The question made the observation room go silent. Every teacher leaned toward their monitors. Chen was quiet for a moment. Yes, he said honestly. Humans used fire to hunt, burning grasslands to drive animals toward hunters. We used it in war, creating weapons that threw fire at enemies. We even made bombs that created firestorms hot enough to melt stone. The cubs looked shocked. A weapon? They had been playing with a weapon? But that's not all fire is, Chen added quickly. A knife can cut vegetables or hurt someone. What matters is how you use it. Fire is a tool. Tools aren't good or evil. People choose how to use them. But isn't it dangerous to teach everyone about fire? Zix asked. What if someone uses it wrong? More dangerous not to teach it, Chen replied. On Earth we have a saying, knowledge is power. If only a few people understand fire, those people control everyone else. But if everyone understands fire, everyone can use it to help themselves. We believe in teaching everyone, trusting everyone, giving everyone the same tools. In the observation room, Tillith pulled up Earth's history files on her data screen. She had read them before, but now she looked deeper. Fire warfare. Humans had names for different fire weapons. Greek fire, napalm, incendiary bombs, flamethrowers. They had taken fire, learned to make it portable, learned to aim it, learned to make it stick to things. Look at this, she said to the other teachers. They weaponized combustion. They made it mobile. They improved it. Kravesh tentacles curled tighter. This is madness. What species masters danger and then teaches it to children? A species that trusts its children, Vares said quietly. Look at Earth's development timeline. They went from fire to space travel in less time than most species went from fire to agriculture. Perhaps this is why. Perhaps teaching danger teaches capability. Tillith scrolled through more files. Human history was full of disasters. Fires that destroyed cities. Explosions that killed thousands. Radiation accidents. Chemical spills. Biological contaminations. Every single one of Earth's technologies had killed humans at some point. But humans didn't stop. They learned from each disaster and made their tools safer. They accepted risk as the price of progress. Where other species said too dangerous, humans said not safe enough yet and kept working. They don't avoid danger, Tillith realized. They iterate until danger becomes manageable. Back in the wilderness dome, Chen was teaching the cubs how to cook over fire. He had brought some vegetables and he showed them how to place food near flames without burning it. Cooking is controlled burning, he explained. Too much fire, you ruin the food. Too little, it doesn't cook. You have to find the balance. Plix, the young Quellen, held a skewer with vegetables over the flames. The cub's tentacles shook slightly with concentration. When the vegetables came out perfectly roasted, Plix's body flushed with happy colors. I controlled fire, Plix said in wonder. I made it do what I wanted. Yes, you did, Chen agreed. That's the secret. Fire is powerful, but you're intelligent. Intelligence beats power when you understand how things work. The lesson continued for another hour. Chen taught them about different types of wood and how they burned. He showed them how to arrange rocks to reflect heat. He demonstrated how to put out a fire completely, stirring the ashes and adding water until nothing remained that could reignite. Never leave fire unattended, he said seriously. Even when you think it's out, check again. Fire is patient. It can wait for the right conditions and come back. Always be thorough. When the demonstration ended, each cub helped put out the fire properly. They took turns adding water and stirring the ashes. They checked for hot spots with their hands hovering above the ground, feeling for heat. When Chen declared it safe, they had left nothing but cold, wet ash. The cubs walked back to the main station, talking excitedly among themselves. They had made fire. They had controlled fire. They had learned something their ancestors never learned. They felt different somehow. Older, more capable. That evening, Professor Tillith visited Chen in his quarters. The other teachers are very concerned, she said. You taught children about fire. Fire that humans used as a weapon. I taught them about a tool, Chen corrected. And yes, I was honest about its history. Should I have lied? You could have left out the weapon part, Tillith suggested. And when they researched it themselves? Chen asked. Better they learn from me with context and ethics than discover it alone and wonder why I hid it. Tillith sat down, her forearms folded thoughtfully. Why do humans teach danger to your young? Because danger exists whether we teach it or not, Chen said. Better to face it educated than ignorant. My daughter knows fire is dangerous. That's why she respects it. Your cubs know fire is dangerous now too. Did you see how careful they were after Yorn got too close? They learned. And if one of them uses fire, to who, Doctor? Kravesh called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council's Education Committee. Teachers from across the station gathered in the large conference chamber, their various forms filling seats designed for different body types. On the central screen, images from the fire demonstration played on repeat. We need to discuss what happened, Kravesh began, his tentacles gesturing at the screen. A human taught our students to create uncontrolled combustion. This is unprecedented and potentially catastrophic. The fire was controlled, Voras pointed out. No one was injured except for a minor heat exposure, which was treated immediately. That's not the point, Kravesh insisted. The point is we allowed a Class 4 hazard near juveniles. What's next? Teaching them to handle radioactive materials? Professor Tillith stood up. Before we continue, I think we need to understand what actually happened. Dr. Kravesh, you're the station's xenobiologist. Can you explain why humans teach their young about dangerous things? Kravesh's color shifted to a darker shade, showing displeasure at being put on the spot. But he brought up his data files on the central screen. Humans evolved on Earth, he began, pulling up an image of the blue and green planet. Earth is classified as a Class 7 death world. High gravity, aggressive microbiology, extreme weather variations, dangerous megafauna. Most species from such worlds never develop advanced civilization. They either go extinct or remain in primitive states. He changed the image to show various Earth creatures. Humans are not the strongest species on their planet. Not the fastest. Not the largest. They have no natural weapons, no armor. Relatively weak senses compared to Earth's predators. By all logic, they should have died out millions of years ago. But they didn't, Tillith said quietly. No, Kravesh agreed. Instead, they developed the most sophisticated threat response system in the known galaxy. Their intelligence evolved specifically to identify danger and create solutions. Where other species ran from fire, humans studied it. Where other species avoided predators, humans hunted them. Where other species died from poisonous plants, humans learned to process them into medicine. He pulled up a chart showing evolutionary timelines. Most council species developed on garden worlds, stable climates, abundant food, minimal predation. We evolved intelligence for social cooperation and resource management. Our planets nurtured us. The chart shifted to show Earth's timeline. Earth attacked humans every single day. Predators, diseases, storms, droughts, floods, earthquakes, volcanoes, ice ages. Earth tried to kill humans for millions of years, and humans learned to kill it back. That's why they teach danger, Vares said, understanding dawning. It's not cruelty. It's survival training. Precisely, Kravesh confirmed. Every human child learns to identify and manage threats because Earth demands it. A Vexari child can grow up never facing real danger. A human child faces potential danger daily. They train their young because their planet requires it. Another teacher, a Perlian named Synth, raised a delicate hand. But they've left Earth now. They have safe ships, safe stations. Why continue this dangerous training? Kravesh pulled up more data. Because this is how humans think. Look at their technology progression. They didn't just learn to use fire. They learned to create fire anywhere, anytime. They made it portable. They scaled it up to heat entire cities or down to light a single room. They took a natural phenomenon and made it completely subservient to their will. The screen showed various human innovations. They did the same with every dangerous thing they encountered. Electricity? They captured it, stored it, transmitted it across continents. Radiation? They used it for power, medicine, and research. Viruses, they weaponized them against disease. Chemical reactions that should kill them? They turned them into food preservation, medicine, and manufacturing. They domesticate danger. Tillith said softly. Yes, Kravesh agreed. Other species see a threat and ask, how do we avoid this? Humans see a threat and ask, how do we use this? That fundamental difference in thinking is why they reach space so quickly. Synth looked troubled. But surely this is reckless. All those dangers you mentioned, they must have killed countless humans during the learning process. They did, Kravesh confirmed, pulling up casualty statistics. Humans died from fire, electricity, radiation, chemical exposure, and countless other causes. Their history is written in disasters. But each disaster taught them what not to do. They learned from their dead and made their tools safer. Then they taught the improved version to their children. The conference chamber fell silent. Every teacher was processing this information, comparing it to their own species' history. Most of them came from worlds where advancement was slow and careful, where safety was paramount, where risk was avoided. They sacrificed safety for speed, Synth said. That's barbaric, is it? Vares challenged. Look at the results. Humans went from stone tools to starships in 200,000 years. My species took 8 million years to do the same. Perhaps some risk is worth the reward. Back in the residential section, Chen was having dinner with a special visitor. His daughter Maya had arrived on the latest transport, a 12-year-old human girl with her father's dark hair and confident smile. So you really taught aliens how to make fire? Maya asked, eating her meal with enthusiasm. I did, Chen confirmed. They were scared at first, but they learned, just like you did when you were younger. Maya nodded. I remember. You took me camping and showed me how to use a bow drill. I thought my arms would fall off before I got an ember. But you didn't give up, Chen said proudly. Because you told me humans don't quit just because something is hard. Maya replied. She paused. Dad, why do these aliens seem so scared of everything? The teachers look nervous all the time. They come from easier worlds, Chen explained. Imagine growing up on a planet where nothing dangerous ever happened. Where the weather was always nice, the food was always available, and nothing ever tried to hurt you. Maya thought about this. I guess I'd be scared of new things too. If I never had to deal with problems, I wouldn't know how to solve them. Exactly, Chen said. Earth made us problem solvers. These aliens are smart, but they think differently. They avoid problems instead of solving them. That sounds boring, Maya said. Chen laughed. It's safe. But yes, maybe a bit boring. The next morning, some of the cubs who had attended the fire demonstration gathered in the station's recreation area. They couldn't stop talking about what they had learned. I want to learn more, Mora said, her scales bright with excitement. Teacher Chen said he could show us how to generate electricity next. Electricity? Kix's fur stood up nervously. That's even more dangerous than fire. But imagine knowing how to make power from nothing, Mora countered. Just using natural materials in our hands. Plix's tentacles waved thoughtfully. My parents were angry when I told them about the fire demonstration. They said it was too dangerous. But I tried to explain that we learned safety too, that the danger is what makes us careful. My parents want me to drop the class, Yorn admitted quietly. They saw the medical report about my hand getting hot. But you weren't really hurt, Zix protested, and you learned from it. They don't see it that way, Yorn said sadly. They think any risk is too much risk. The conversation was interrupted by Maya walking into the recreation area. The alien cub stared at her, realizing this was a young human. She looked so normal, so unimpressive physically, just a small biped in casual clothes. Hi, Maya said with a friendly wave. I'm Maya. You must be some of the students my dad taught. You're Chen's offspring? Mora asked, approaching carefully. How old are you? 12 Earth years, Maya replied. And you know how to make fire? Kix asked. Since I was 6, Maya said with a shrug. My dad taught me. All Earth kids learn stuff like that. Fire, shelter building, water purification, basic first aid. It's normal for us. The cubs looked at each other. Normal. Creating fire was normal for human children. What else do you know? Zix asked, fascinated. Well, I can identify poisonous plants, treat injuries, navigate by stars, purify water 3 different ways, build a temporary shelter, signal for help, find food in the wild. Maya counted on her fingers. Oh, and I know basic self-defense. My mom made me take classes. Self-defense? Plix asked. Against what? Other humans mostly, Maya said casually. Or animals if you're in the wrong place. Earth has lots of things that might hurt you if you're not careful. And you just accept that? Mora asked, shocked. Living in constant danger? It's not constant danger, Maya corrected. It's just being prepared. My parents always say hope for the best, prepare for the worst. If you know how to handle problems, they're not scary anymore. They're just challenges. She sat down with the group, completely comfortable despite being the only human among aliens. Dad told me you guys did really well with the fire lesson. Want to hear about the time I accidentally set my campsite on fire and had to put it out? The cubs leaned in, eager to hear the story. In the observation room, Tillith watched. The Galactic Council's Education Committee convened an emergency session 3 days after the fire demonstration. Representatives from all 47 member species filled the grand chamber, their images projected from across the galaxy. At the center of the room stood Ambassador Chen, calm and ready to answer questions. Ambassador Chen, began Counselor Vrath, a senior Threxian with silver scales. You have caused quite a disruption at Learning Station 17. We have received hundreds of complaints from concerned parents. They say you are teaching their children dangerous practices. I'm teaching their children survival skills, Chen replied. Skills that humans consider basic education. Basic? Counselor Synth's voice rose in pitch. Fire creation is not basic. It is a Class 4 hazard requiring certified handlers and containment protocols. You taught it to unsupervised juveniles. They were supervised, Chen corrected gently. I was there. Safety teams were there. Medical personnel were there. And the cubs learned not just how to make fire, but how to respect it, control it, and extinguish it safely. Another counselor, a Quellan named Drex, gestured with multiple tentacles. But why teach this at all? We have technology for heat and light. Fire is obsolete. Chen looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching him. May I tell you a story? Counselor Vrath nodded permission. 200,000 years ago, Chen began, my ancestors were just clever apes on a dangerous planet. They had no technology, no tools except sharpened rocks. They were prey for larger animals. They should have gone extinct. He paused, letting this sink in. But one day, one of my ancestors picked up a burning branch from a lightning-struck tree. Instead of running from the fire, they studied it. They learned to keep it alive. They learned to create it themselves. That moment changed everything. Chen's voice grew stronger. Fire let us cook food, giving us nutrition to grow larger brains. Fire scared predators away from our camps, letting us sleep safely. Fire hardened our spears, making us hunters instead of prey. Fire let us survive ice ages that should have killed us. Fire was the first time humans took something deadly and made it serve us. And you think our children need to know this why? Counselor Drex asked. Because the principle matters more than the tool, Chen said. Fire taught humans that danger can be mastered. That lesson led to everything else. We learned to harness electricity, split atoms, manipulate genetics, travel through space. Every human achievement started with the idea that dangerous things can be understood and controlled. Professor Tillith stood up from her seat. "Counselors, may I speak?" "Proceed, Professor," Vrath said. "I was skeptical of Ambassador Chen's methods," Tillith admitted. "I watched the fire demonstration with my finger on the emergency stop button, certain someone would be hurt. But I watched something else happen instead. I watched 30 young aliens learn to be brave." She pulled up data on her display. "These are the engagement scores for the cubs who attended Chen's demonstration. Their classroom performance has improved by 42% across all subjects. Their problem-solving test scores are up 60%. Their confidence assessments show unprecedented increases." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "More importantly," Tillith continued, "I watched them learn something we don't teach in our standard curriculum. We teach our students to be safe. Chen taught them to be capable. There's a difference. A dangerous difference," Counselor Synth argued. "Capability without caution leads to disasters. Chen taught both." Voris spoke up, joining Tillith. "I reviewed the complete lesson. He spent equal time on safety protocols as on fire creation. The cubs learned respect for fire's power alongside understanding of its use. This is not reckless teaching." Counselor Vrath looked at Chen. "What do you say to parents who fear their children will be hurt in your classes?" "I say they're right to be concerned," Chen replied honestly. "Learning does involve some risk, but calculated risk with proper supervision is very different from reckless danger. On Earth we have a saying, 'Smooth seas never made a skilled sailor.' Children need challenges to grow. How many human children are injured during this survival training?" Counselor Drex challenged. "Some," Chen admitted. "Minor burns, small cuts, bruises. But we also have statistics showing that children who learn these skills have better decision-making, higher confidence, and stronger problem-solving abilities throughout their lives. The small risks early lead to better outcomes later." He looked directly at the counselor. "Your species has one of the lowest injury rates in the galaxy. You also have one of the slowest technological advancement rates. My species has a higher injury rate, but we also went from caves to starships faster than any species in galactic history. Maybe those things are connected." The chamber erupted in debate. Some counselors were outraged at the suggestion that safety slowed progress. Others looked thoughtful, considering the correlation. Counselor Vrath called for order. "Let us hear from the students themselves. Bring in the cubs." The 30 young aliens who attended the fire demonstration entered the chamber nervously. They stood in a group, various species united by shared experience. "Cubs," Vrath said gently, "tell us about your experience with Ambassador Chen's teaching." "Were you frightened?" Mora the Threxian stepped forward. "Yes, Counselor. I was very frightened at first. Fire is dangerous, but Teacher Chen showed us that understanding danger makes it less frightening. Now I know how fire works. I know how to create it safely and stop it safely. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm educated." "I burned my hand," Yorn added, his voice small but steady. "It hurt. But Teacher Chen helped me and I learned to be more careful. Now I watch what I'm doing better. Not just with fire, but with everything." Kik spoke next. "My parents want me to stop taking the class, but I don't want to stop. I'm learning things I never knew I could do. Teacher Chen says humans believe in us. He says we can handle difficult things if we're taught properly. Nobody ever told us that before. We're always treated like we might break," Zix added quietly. "Everything is safe, everything is protected, everything is controlled. But Teacher Chen treats us like we're capable, like we're strong enough to learn hard things. It feels good." Plix's tentacles waved enthusiastically. "I want to learn everything Teacher Chen knows. He said next he'll show us about electricity and then about simple machines and then about chemistry. He's teaching us how to understand the universe, not just memorize facts about it." Counselor Synth looked at the eager faces of the cubs. "You understand that more advanced lessons will be more dangerous?" "Yes, Counselor," Mora said. "But we trust Teacher Chen. He keeps us safe while teaching us to be strong." The counselors spoke among themselves for several minutes. Finally, Counselor Vrath addressed the chamber. "This is an unusual situation. Human teaching methods are very different from our traditional approaches. However, we cannot ignore the positive results. The question before us is whether to continue this experiment or end it immediately." "I move to end it," Counselor Synth said. "The risk is too great." "I move to continue," Tillith countered. "With modifications and oversight. The educational benefits are substantial. The vote was close. Species divided along predictable lines. Those from safer worlds voted to end the program. Those from more challenging environments voted to continue. In the end, the decision came down to Counselor Vrath's tie-breaking vote. I have been thinking about my own education, Vrath said slowly. I learned from books and lectures. I was taught to be safe, to be careful, to avoid risk. I have lived a long life without injury. He paused. I have also lived a long life without challenge, without growth, without the satisfaction of overcoming difficulty. He looked at Chen. The human method is not our method. But perhaps our method is not the only way. I vote to continue the program with these conditions. Participation is voluntary. Parents must give explicit permission. Safety protocols remain strict, and regular reviews will be conducted. Relief flooded through Chen, though he kept his face neutral. Furthermore, Vrath continued, we will create a new curriculum, Deathworlder Studies. It will be open to any student whose parents approve. Ambassador Chen will serve as the primary instructor, with assistance from other Deathworlder species in the council. 3 months passed quickly. The Deathworlder Studies program grew beyond anyone's expectations. All 30 original cubs continued. Applications from 500 more flooded in. Chen trained assistant instructors, including 2 brave Vexari teachers who wanted to learn the new methods. The curriculum expanded. After fire came electricity generation using simple materials. Then basic chemistry using safe but instructive reactions. Then simple machines and mechanical advantage. Each lesson carried risk, but each lesson was carefully structured to teach safety alongside skill. Not every parent approved. About 40% of station residents kept their children in traditional classes, but the 60% who participated showed remarkable progress. Test scores rose. Confidence increased. Problem-solving abilities improved dramatically. Other stations began requesting similar programs. Humans instructors were recruited to teach at 5 other education facilities. The Galactic Council started discussing whether these methods should be part of standard curriculum.